Same thing when I graduated with my graduate. I needed a job. And so I didn't really have time to think about what I wanted to do. It was like, do something that's going to make you money so that you can pay your rent. So this was really the first time in my life where I was like, wow, I've taken a lot of sequential steps that have not gotten me where I want to go. Something different needs to happen this time. Like, I need to shake things up because this path is not the path I want to be on anymore.
Today's episode of the Overcoming Graduation podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/OCG. That's audibletrial.com/OCG. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury, a show where I work to teach you everything I wished I'd known about life to help you graduate to the next level. In this show, we'll hit on everything that relates to your personal development and growth to reach your highest potential and achieve your biggest dreams. Anything from morning routines to spirituality to meditation to exercise to diet. We will hit on everything to make sure that I give you all of the tools and all the information you need to go and begin creating your dream life today. One of my favorite ways to do this is to interview incredible people who have overcome what may have seemed to be insurmountable odds to achieve massive results in their own lives and bring maximum value to the people that they're working to serve. If you're an entrepreneur, you've probably heard of the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast hosted by John Lee Dumas. What you may not know is that John runs this business with his wife and what he says his better half, Kate, who is today's guest on the Overcoming Graduation podcast. Her journey has taken her in a variety of different directions and at times felt to her as though it was completely random. She graduated with an English degree, spent time working as a commercial loan processor, left and earned her master's degree in English, returned to banking, took her first entrepreneurial leap with Kate's Copy, ultimately closed that business and spent time working at an advertising and marketing agency, then finally joined JLD and running Entrepreneur on Fire where she is working today. All of these seemingly random experiences have given her the opportunity to bring massive value to EO Fire that she would not have been able to had she not experienced all of these different things. The Entrepreneur on Fire podcast is now one of the most downloaded entrepreneurship podcasts in the world. It has over 1,700 published episodes, and I'll say it one more time, 1,700 published episodes, millions and millions of downloads worldwide, and has hosted such incredible guests as Tony Robbins, Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuk, Barbara Cochran, Tim Ferriss, and so many more. That's just to name a few. In today's interview, Kate will discuss how all of the seemingly random steps in her life came together to help her be one of the most integral parts of the EO Fire team. What she learned leaving and re-entering the corporate world and how that empowered her entrepreneurial journey, how to weave your passions into everything you do no matter where your career takes you, how to connect unpleasant experiences from your past to lessons in the present, the importance of creating space and slowing down when it comes to realizing your passion and purpose, the importance of knowing your customer and finding your niche when it comes to building a business and locking in clients, and so much more. Today's interview was an absolute pleasure. It's a little bit shorter than our typical hour format, and Kate and I did about a half hour, but she has packed tons of value into a very short time. And Entrepreneur on Fire interviews entrepreneurs from all over the world, learning from their mistakes, helping provide lessons, and helping to empower entrepreneurs to take their steps. So if you want to learn about building your own business, overcoming obstacles, what your random steps can mean for you in terms of creating your dream life, today is the interview for you. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Kate Erickson. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. I am extremely excited about my guest today because we have Kate Erickson of Entrepreneur on Fire joining us today. So, Kate, thank you so much for being on the show.
You are so welcome, Brian. Thanks for having me.
So Kate and I had to spend a lot of time just organizing this and going back and forth, so we finally were able to connect, and we have got a shorter episode, so only 30 minutes, so I want to dive right into it. So Kate, as I was telling you in pre-show, I loved reading your story, and I'm so excited to hear even more depth and for you to share it with my community here so they can learn more about you and Entrepreneur on Fire. But before we get to that, let's go back to when you were graduating from your undergraduate degree. And I'd love for you to tell the listeners about what the world looked like for you and what were your goals and dreams coming out of college.
Okay, wow. So I graduated undergrad in 2005. And my goals and dreams at that point were kind of undecided, which was pretty stressful because I thought going through college that once I chose a degree, a focus, which I didn't do until my junior year when my counselor said, if you don't choose something, you're going to be in college longer than 4 years. So I was like, oh my goodness, I better choose something. But I kind of thought and assumed from, what I'd been taught that once I choose a degree that will, just magically lead me into my career for life and that would become my dream. So honestly, when I graduated college, I had no idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I, at the time, was working at a bank as a commercial loan processor. And I knew that I didn't want that to be my forever, but I had no idea what I wanted to be my forever.
Right. At that point, you come out, and it's one of the most common stories on this show is that just about everyone I interview says, I really didn't know. And the reason I think it's so important, the reason I ask it at the beginning of every interview is because I want the listeners to understand you don't need to have it figured out now. You don't ever really need to have it figured out because all of us are in that process, that iterative process throughout our lives to figure out what really makes us tick and what really jives with us. So you were working at this bank, and I know there was kind of a tipping point where everything changed. So can you tell the listeners about that?
Yeah, so it was probably like within a year or so that I was sitting in the back office one day, the same old grind, doing paperwork, following up with title companies, getting in touch with escrow companies. And I'm like, I just can't do this anymore. And this is, kind of right before the big crash. So like commercial loans everyone was doing refis. There was not really anything new to learn. And it was just very repetitive, dry work. And I thought, okay, time to put my big girl pants on, grow up, finally figure out what I want to do that I can actually make a career out of, that I, actually want to move up the ladder in, because at that time, corporate America was my only vision. I didn't know about entrepreneurship, to be honest. I didn't understand that was a possibility, or even if I would have known it was a possibility, I probably would have been like, I have no idea how to do that. So I'll just go ahead and stay in corporate America where I get a paycheck and health benefits. So because I knew that I couldn't do the commercial loan processing thing anymore, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, I thought, well, what if I go back to school again? Maybe it'd be a good idea to get a graduate degree, even though, I still didn't really understand or know what I wanted to do with that. But it was, kind of a safe, quote unquote, safe next step, or so I thought at the time, to take out more student loans, which was obviously not a great idea. And so I went to graduate school to get my English degree. And within a few months of that program, which was to last 2 years, I thought, okay, you know what? It's finally hit me. I kind of felt like I had a little bit of an aha moment where the reason that I chose English in my undergrad was because I was so inspired by my professors. They were so passionate about what they talked about, and they were so passionate in their teaching that I was probably, looking back, attracted to that because I didn't have something that I was that way about. I didn't feel like I was super passionate about a subject or a topic. And so I think that I was really attracted to that. And within a couple of months of entering my graduate program in English, I decided that what I was going to adopt as my dream was to be a college English professor, to kind of like share that ripple effect with other people.
I love that what drove it was really a connection to passion more than anything else, was that you saw people in front of you that were seemed so in line with what they wanted to do, and that they were so on purpose that that's really what drew you in more than anything else. And before we move on to the next steps in your story, I'd be curious to get your perspective on whether or not you would recommend people getting graduate degrees, because many people have the same thought process you did. They think, well, I want to do something else, but I'm not sure what, so let me go back to school. But me, having graduated with $80,000 in student loans from undergrad, I looked at grad school as something where I'm like, that's not really a step that I want to take. So based off your experience, do you think that grad school was valuable for you, and would you recommend it for others?
You know, it was valuable for me at the time. I can't say that I would change anything about my journey, because I truly believe that everything, all the experiences that I've had and the lessons I've learned have gotten me to where I am today. So I wouldn't go back and change the fact that I did that. Would I recommend it to somebody right now? No, because what I learned in grad school was that I didn't need to go to grad school. And that's like pretty much it.
I've found that more and more for people, if self-education is a route where your next steps in whatever your journey is, like that an MBA or a PhD is not required, I encourage people so much more to go out and self-educate, because to your earlier point, it's like if you hadn't even known about entrepreneurship, but when you found it, it was something that was so exciting and new and fresh. So when it comes to these other aspects, I think a lot of people default into it because they don't know another step. But I encourage people to start experimenting and trying. And it's a lot of the things you guys talk about with Entrepreneur on Fire and in your interviews, of how you talk to people and they say, I just started experimenting. And you learn so much about yourself when you get out into the world and try, versus just sitting at home, sitting on the couch thinking. So you took a next step and decided to go into entrepreneurship for yourself for the first time. So could you tell the listeners about your first entrepreneurial endeavor?
For sure. So I got my graduate degree in 2008, and my dream of becoming a college professor was totally crushed because it was 2008 and I was living in California, and that was, you know, the big drop in like everything. Professors, teachers, the entire educational system was basically being pink slipped, like laid off. Funding was being cut. So I found it literally impossible to be able to get into the teaching profession without like doing some really like dangerous betting with whether or not I had a roof over my head. So I got into banking again, because that's what I could get. And I needed to make money. And so for actually the next 3.5 years until 2011, I was in banking, and I worked in the human resources department, which was oh so much fun because everybody just loves the human resources department.
Right, 100%, yeah.
And I, after 3.5 years of never moving anywhere, doing the same thing day in and day out, no promotions, very minimal raises. I got to the point where I was like, I finally gave myself space to recognize that there was something else. And that was the first time in my life that I had ever done that. Like when I graduated college, my undergrad, it was like, oh, well, I already have this job in commercial loans and it's good and it pays me well, so I'm just going to stay here. Like gave myself absolutely no space to find something different. Got fed up with that. And as you pointed out earlier, Brian, took the easy route and defaulted to like, well, I don't really know what I want to do, so maybe I'll just go back to school, buy myself some more time. Didn't give myself any space. Same thing when I graduated with my graduate. I needed a job. And so I didn't really have time to think about what I wanted to do. It was like, do something that's going to make you money so that you can pay your rent. So this was really the first time in my life where I was like, wow, I've taken a lot of sequential steps that have not gotten me where I want to go. something different needs to happen this time. Like, I need to shake things up because this path is not the path I want to be on anymore. And that is when I took my first entrepreneurial leap and launched my my first entrepreneurial venture, which was Kate's Coffee. So I spent about 6 months after mentally making that decision in my mind that I was going to leave my job. I spent 6 months drawing up a very strict budget, paying off all of my debt except for my student loans, and quitting my job for the first time ever.
What I loved about what you said leading into that, and what I want the listeners really to pay attention to, is that you said creating space to see something different, to see even the opportunity or the possibility, because so many people I meet don't even acknowledge that they could be living the life that they dream about. They don't even acknowledge that they could do something different than their parents or their family. And what you said about following that linear progression and not getting the results, I talk to people every day who have that same story, but they're not willing to pause for a second, create that space, step back and go, what can I do to make this different? Because this linear thing isn't working. So there's got to be something for me out there that's going to bring me not only the feelings that I want to experience, but the impact on the world that I want to deliver. So can you tell the listeners about Kate's Copy? And you took this step to pay back loans. You're leaning in full out. What were some of the biggest good things that you learned from it? And also some of the biggest challenges you faced in your first endeavor?
Well, so I was very lucky at the time that, like, the timing of me quitting my job, taking this leap into entrepreneurship, it coincided exactly and purposefully, well, not purposefully from the beginning, but I planned the day that I left my job based on this, is I was in a new relationship with this gentleman named John Lee Dumas. And he was moving cross country from California to Maine and asked me to move out there with him. So when I quit my job and took my leap into entrepreneurship, I was simultaneously picking up my life, leaving everything that I knew behind and moving to the East Coast where I knew nobody and nothing other than John. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot to shake up. I didn't realize that I was literally going to change my entire life when I had that thought when I was sitting out my job. But one of the biggest challenges from that was not only did I throw myself into this totally unknown area of entrepreneurship, but I was also throwing myself into a whole new lifestyle that I wasn't familiar with. I didn't have any connections in Maine. I didn't have a community. I had no idea how to start and run a business. But the awesome things that came from it were that I proved to myself, even in just quitting my job and taking that leap, regardless of if my business ever worked or not, and at that point, I had no idea whether it was going to work or not, I just proved to myself that I'm in full control of what my future looks like. And that was a huge mindset shift for me. And I've carried it with me since the moment I realized it. I was sitting in a coffee shop with my laptop computer, and I could have literally done anything I wanted at that moment in time. And I had never had that feeling or that realization before, because for the last 26 years of my life, I'd always been waiting for somebody else to make something happen for me. I'd always been waiting for somebody else to give me what I wanted and to create the life that I wanted. Like, I didn't ever think that it was up to me or in my control until that point in time. So that was the best thing that came of me taking that leap.
What's great about this, and I really appreciate you being honest there, saying, there was the expectation that someone would come and bring it to you, is this is something that millennials get criticized a lot for, is having the entitlement idea coming out of school, saying I have a degree, so I should be given a job. You graduated in one of the most difficult times in recent history to get a job and had to face that situation. So you're not just dealing with regular hiring, you're dealing with an economic crash that is totally changing the landscape of the job market. So having that strength to, and that confidence in yourself to step out and do something on your own, to finally take things into your own world and say, this is on me now. It's both empowering and terrifying, because anyone who's stepped out of their comfort zone knows it's great, but there's also a lot of times where there's a lot of fear and doubt. So it's such a powerful thing to do, but the more you do it, it's like learning to swim. You start swimming further and further out until one day you realize you can swim a mile, you can tread water for hours, you can swim to another island and live a totally different life. So Can you tell the listeners about how Kate's Copy progressed and what ultimately happened with it?
Sure. So, when I realized I had no idea what I was doing, and that it was sink or swim, literally, I needed to figure out how to build a business or I was going to be in trouble. So I immediately started doing research. I started listening to podcasts like Smart Passive Income, following blogs online. I was really into writing. That's one thing that I carried with me from my English degree. I really enjoyed telling stories and writing. I kind of, at that point in time, envisioned Kate's Copy being a copywriting service where I'd help other businesses better market themselves through developing an online presence. So essentially writing website copy for people, helping them start an online presence by way of social media and the like. But I didn't have any connections in Maine, and I knew I needed connections if I was ever going to be able to tell people that I was doing this. So I started going to networking events. I joined this small networking community called Propel. They did like bi-weekly and monthly meetups where, people in the community would come together, they'd share resources and just chat about life and how they were running their businesses and what they did in work. It wasn't all entrepreneurs. A lot of the people were people who worked in corporate in the Portland area. I was living in Portland at the time. And so those were kind of like my first steps to try and get Kate's Copy off the ground. But what I realized probably within 3 or 4 months, quite quickly, but 3 or 4 months when you're just like kind of wake up and you're like, okay, what am I going to do today to grow my business? Like, that's a long time. Mm-hmm. I didn't have any clients or customers. I was making zero money, and I kind of had a whoa moment where something needed to change. I either needed to get a client and start making money, or I was going to have to fold the business and find a job. And so I talked to John about it. And at the time he was working in commercial real estate. So, he was in corporate as well. And I asked him what he thought, like, what gives here? I feel like I'm doing all the right things. I'm following people online. I'm learning from them, like what it means to start a business and what's required. I've joined these networking communities, and like I felt like I was out there talking to people and that people were asking me about my business, but I just wasn't locking in clients. Like, do I need to take a sales class or what's going on here? And he was like, you are so far away from locking in a client because you have absolutely no niche, and you are trying to tell me that you know who your perfect customer is, but your perfect customer is no one. You're casting way too wide of a net, and because you don't know how to talk about what you have to offer, nobody's going to pay you money. And that was kind of like a very blunt force, thank you very much for saying that. Now I realize where I went wrong, and I ended up folding the business, taking those lessons learned with a lot of appreciation for that experience, but of course a lot of frustration. I felt like I had failed because I was quitting this business. It was embarrassing to tell my family and friends that I was going back to corporate. I felt embarrassed myself that here I was thinking I was off to start my entrepreneurial future, and I'm tail between my legs going back to corporate. So within about 6 months, I found myself at an advertising and marketing agency working as an account manager.
Mm-hmm. And this is a very common story. And with all the episodes I've listened to of Entrepreneur on Fire, it's amazing how common this is. It's that feeling of, I didn't do it the first time, so I failed, and now I've got to go back. And I almost relate it to shooting baskets. It's like trying to shoot a basket and being like, wow, that was harder than I thought and I missed. And rather than go back and coach, maybe I should play a different sport. Maybe I should just give up on this. And we all get those feelings, though, when we try something new and we're terrified and we don't want people to know that we failed. But something I love about the way that you guys set up Entrepreneur on Fire is it's all about the transparency and being real with the audience and talking about the ups and downs, because it helps those people who are struggling through the tough times. So since we've got about 10 minutes left, I want to make sure we dive right into Entrepreneur on Fire. So after you re-entered the marketing, this advertising type of space, and eventually, just because I've read your bio, that JLD had started this business and you ultimately decided to come in. So can you tell the listeners about how your prior experiences that may have seemed random or may have felt to you like you were jumping around, how they all came together to help you bring massive value to Entrepreneur on Fire?
Yeah, Brian, it's so crazy because that has been like an ever evolving, like even within the past couple of weeks, I've looked back on my journey and my experiences and thought like, wow, life was really preparing me for what is required in our business, like what's required to make Entrepreneur on Fire what it is today. I've been through these things for this moment, and it's like really amazing to have that moment where you literally see that. And so, marketing and advertising has played a huge role, understanding branding from a very deep perspective, literally helping clients in the advertising and marketing agency come up with brands. And these are for multi-billion-dollar companies, helping put together advertisements, what it means to spend money on advertising and what that looks like. I mean, all of that has very well prepared me for helping, market and brand Entrepreneur on Fire. And we came out with a very strong brand. John has done an amazing job from day one of having a very unique personality. But, beyond that, it's just who he is. And the brand is served very well by that. So advertising and marketing absolutely has helped me in so many areas to help get our name out, to help with the campaigns that we run. The human resources work that I did, man, I never thought that would come in handy. But, here we are running a business where we're starting to hire employees and understanding, non-exempt employees versus exempt employees and what's required of us as an employer and where we could run into some really big trouble if we're not careful. Like, because I worked in human resources for 3.5 years, I know that stuff. Banking, just like being familiar with numbers and being able to calculate and understanding percentages and, knowing that sometimes a deal's not going to work the first time, but that doesn't mean it's not going to work a second time. All of my banking experience and cash handling and all of that has definitely helped because I'm the one that does our books. We're very lucky to have a CPA and an accounting team. But when it comes down to creating systems and making sure that we're getting paid when we're supposed to get paid, that's the part of the business that I run. And so, I could go on, but it's just literally every single day, I'm constantly making correlations and connections to these seemingly random, unpleasant experiences have really turned in and helped shape the business that we're creating.
What's so powerful about that is for all the listeners out there, whatever moment you're in right now, if it's tough and you feel like it's not right and you want to be somewhere else, learn everything you can from it. Even lean into the negative things, because ultimately when you look back, you may find just little gold nuggets and diamonds buried in the past that you thought this experience was nothing, it was worthless, it was random.
anytime I look back, Kate, I had the same experience where I realized, oh my God, that happened so that I could do this. And I love to hear that it's such a common experience. Now, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure, because I just assume everyone knows Entrepreneur on Fire because I've known about it for so long, but can you tell the listeners what is the purpose of Entrepreneur on Fire and what makes it really unique from all the other podcasts out there?
Absolutely. So our mission since day one is to inspire millions, to inspire people who are in the same position as me, just 5 years ago, that entrepreneurship is an option, that you can take control of your life and create your future, actively create your future every single day with the actions that you're taking. And, beyond that, not only to inspire people to understand that, but to also give them the tools and the resources through the daily interviews that John does with successful entrepreneurs to not only show people that path, but to also help lead them down it. And so everything that we create in some way, shape, or form funnels up to that. We're really passionate about helping other people create freedom in their life through doing things that they actually love doing. And John and I are very lucky and grateful to be living that life today. And it's only because, we continue to step out of our comfort zone. We continue to take risks. We continue to take those leaps, even when we don't know if it's going to work. And even when we don't know what's going to happen, what the result's going to be. So aside from, the daily podcast that John has been doing, we're on, I think, almost over 1,700 episodes now to date, and we're going strong. So we're just really passionate about helping other people leap into entrepreneurship the same way that we did.
So what you're saying is you really need to get more content out there because there's just not enough. You need to kind of build more of a base. Yeah. The volume that you guys put out, and for all the listeners, John or JLD is known for batching, and that's one of the things he talks about a lot on his show. And I think it's a brilliant concept for getting large volumes of work done in a short amount of time. But even so, the amount that you guys are able to batch and successfully continue with this cycle is unbelievable. So since we are at about 3 minutes left, and I want to make sure I'm being conscious of your time, we're going to dive right into the last 2 questions, our closing questions that each episode of Overcoming Graduation ends with. And before I do that, congratulations, because you guys are doing an amazing job. We've got lots of mutual friends out in the entrepreneurship world, and I've heard nothing but great things about you guys from everyone I know who knows you really well. So congrats, and thank you for doing what you do, because it inspires a lot of us out there.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that.
So on that note, you're very welcome. On that note, first question that we wrap up all the interviews with is millennials are often in a very weird place, very similar to the one that you were in, a weird place in that they don't know where to go, where to get started, and many of them don't believe they have any value to offer the corporate world or as an entrepreneur because they don't have quote unquote experience or that they haven't gotten an education in this thing. So can you tell the listeners what you believe is the unique value that millennials bring?
I would say it's everything that you just said. I mean, we've been taught for so long that that first comes the education and then comes the degree, and that's what's going to get you your job. And millennials have this incredible opportunity because everything's been flipped on its head. People are creating companies like Uber and Airbnb and, these incredible industry and world-changing platforms. And these are people who have potentially, never been to college before. These are people who tried to get financing and people told them your idea is never going to work. So we're in an amazing space right now where I feel like when I graduated college or when I graduated high school, if I wouldn't have gone to college, that would have been just like so controversial in my family. Mm-hmm. And it was never even a thought in my mind. Like I never thought about not going to college. Like that was just the next step and there was nothing else. I feel like millennials have this amazing opportunity because I believe that expectation and that flow has been broken. So take advantage of it and live in it and try, see what you can create.
I love that. See what you can create, because you have this drive, you have this fire inside. There's something unique that you want to bring. See what you can create. You'll never know unless you try. So the final question, Kate, and this time has flown by, is if you could go back and talk to your younger self, if you could talk to Kate at graduation, what would be actually, Kate? So one thing I wanted to tell you about in pre-show, I forgot, is that I live right near the train tracks, and trains come by very frequently during the show. So rather than make the train be a bad thing I need to edit, I have turned it into a character named Donna, who helps me promote my guest. So I just heard Donna blow her horn, and Donna would like you to please share with the listeners where they can go to learn more about you and Entrepreneur on Fire.
Love it. Well, anything that you want to know about Entrepreneur on Fire, you can head over to eofire.com. That's our home base and where you can get all the goods.
Perfect. So now we'll hit the closing question. Thank you, Donna. The final question is, if you could go back and talk to your younger self when you were graduating from undergrad, let's say, what would be the advice you would give to younger Kate?
I would tell younger Kate that if the next step seems really fluid and easy, that I should rethink that next step, because that's just like what every progression until I took my entrepreneurial leap seemed just like so fluid and obvious to me. Like, I just graduated college. Obviously, I'm going to take the job that I can get. I don't like my job right now. Obviously, I'm just going to go back to school so that I can push life off. Obviously, since I just graduated college, I need to make money, so I'm going to go back to a job. Like, those decisions, I never gave myself the chance to think that there was a different option. So if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would let myself know that there's always more than one option, and we just have to choose it.
Perfect. It is something where we're always creating, and where we, as to your earlier point, create the space to see other options and use our creativity to apply to every situation. We can see that there's always limitless possibilities to how we go about doing things. So Kate, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, your wisdom for me and the listeners, and it has been fantastic getting to have you on the show.
Brian, you're so welcome. I really enjoyed our chat. Thank you so much.
All right, listeners, that is all for you today. Kate, I'll ask you to hang on for 1 second, but listeners, go and check out eofire.com and the Entrepreneur on Fire podcast. And otherwise, I'll be checking with you guys again soon.
It was so great having Kate on the show today and really being able to dive into her story and learn more about all of the steps it took for her to get to this extremely successful entrepreneurial venture. What I think is a common misconception is the idea that if we pick wrong and we take the wrong step, that's going to throw us off for the rest of our lives. That if we don't make all of the right steps in the right sequence, then we'll never be able to ultimately succeed the way we want to. What I found interviewing incredibly successful people like Kate and so many of the other guests on my podcast, and then so many other people that I've just met in my day-to-day life, it's not that way at all. The reality is the people who are the most successful are the ones who find a way to learn from each and every experience they have and pull those lessons together from seemingly disparate areas to create a reality where they are empowered, they're stronger, they're clearer than they have ever been, and as a result, they can do whatever they want. It's the people who believe that no matter what, they're going to find a way to succeed, that no matter what failures they've had, no matter what wrong turns they took, that they're going to either get back on the right road or blaze the trail themselves and create a totally new road. Those are the people who ultimately succeed. Kate's journey is such a powerful example of that because you see her going from being an English major, she's touched in banking, she's touched in advertising and marketing, she went back for a master's degree and then graduated at a point where no one was able to get a job in that industry and jobs were being cut. At any point, she could have quit. At any point, she could have given up and settled. At any point, she could have said, you know what, I'm just not meant to be happy. I'm just not meant to succeed. I'm not meant to be my best version of me. That version of Kate that I see in my head, that's just never going to exist. But because she didn't go down that path, because she didn't have a pity party for years and years and years, she said, all right, here's the reality. Here's where I'm at. Here's what I need to change. She was open to feedback because when JLD spoke to her and said, listen, the reason you're not succeeding is right in front of you. It's your lack of a niche. And she was like, all right, I got to step back and recalculate and reevaluate. She also wasn't afraid to go and get back into the corporate world. I know a lot of young adults, especially young entrepreneurs, that say, I can't imagine myself working for someone. I can't see myself being happy in a 9-to-5. But I often ask these people, well, who's your dream person to work with? If there was someone out there, one person in the world you could work with, who would it be? And let's say someone said Oprah or Tony Robbins or Tim Ferriss or any of these big names. And I said, if you could work 9-to-5 for that person, would you want to? 99 out of 100 people are going to say yes. And the other thing is, when you're able to create revenue and stability while learning valuable skills that are helping you develop your entrepreneurial practice, it is a win-win, because it is very hard. You can ask a lot of entrepreneurs, and I ask them on this show about this all the time. It is very hard to operate from a creative place when you're not sure where your next meal will come from or if you're able to pay your medical bills. So for those of you out there that are struggling right now, consider opening yourself up to taking a job, but look for jobs that have components of your dream, whether it's a dream job or the education you need to create your dream company, your dream entrepreneurial endeavor. Look for those different opportunities. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Kate, thank you again, because it was an absolute pleasure to get to know you, to meet you at Podcast Movement, and now have you on the show. For all the listeners, that is all for today. As always, be sure to check out the show notes so you can learn more about Entrepreneur on Fire and visit eofire.com. If you'd like to see the newly updated Overcoming Graduation website, you can visit overcominggraduation.com. And although it is still a bit under construction, it is absolutely steps up from where it used to be. If you would like to learn a new Latin-based language in 90 days or less, you can visit overcominggraduation.com/language to learn the approach that I use to learn Portuguese in 7 months, practicing only 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes a day. I studied a bunch of different methodologies, learned about psychology, memory retention, how people recall information, and put that all together into a program to help you learn faster than ever. And best part, program's free. If you want to go to the advanced program, that does have a cost, but the free program is there. And if you follow those steps, you can learn a new language faster than ever before. And if you'd like to pick up a copy of my #1 Amazon best-selling book, The First Step, you can visit thefirststepgift.com to get your free book bonuses and click on a link to go buy the book on Amazon in the soft cover or Kindle format. Finally, if anyone is interested in coaching, if you're ready to level up in your life, if you want to get past the limiting beliefs and mindsets that seem to always hold you back when you're about to break through to that next level, coaching may be a good fit for you. I've invested thousands and thousands of dollars and so many hours in coaching, and it has helped me to become the best version of me I've ever been. So if you're interested in coaching, reach out to me at brian@overcominggraduation.com. That's all for today, guys. As you can hear in the background, Donna is saying hello. And actually, in this case, she's saying goodbye for today. So thank you, Donna, for chipping in at this point. Love you guys. Keep being you. Keep pushing for your goals and go make something big happen today.